Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today, where it is time for the first start-sit episode of 2021 Fantasy Football. And do you know what it's going to be? It's going to be a banger. Because everything we've done for weeks, for months, all the research comes to this moment right here, where we just start flinging our dominance all over the place in our fantasy football leagues, and we're going to do it a lot this season. Now, we've gotten a lot of new subscribers here over the last few weeks, the last few months. Maybe you don't know what to expect in these videos. I'm going to let you know. However, maybe you're a seasoned vet here and you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Well, it's the regular season, which means it's the return of timestamps down below in the description if that's what you're looking for. So hit the like button for some timestamps. But maybe you're new here. What do we cover in start-sit videos? You see these all over YouTube, right? They're all over the place. But a lot of people will talk, 5 guys, 8 guys, my 10 starts of the week. None of those guys may be on your roster, and you get nothing out of that video. Over here, every player, every matchup, every week, you're going to hear a take on your guy. Now, maybe some of them are obvious. Yeah, we know you're going to start Derrick Henry, but does Derrick Henry have a good matchup? Is Derrick Henry going to possibly struggle? We'll talk about everybody just so you have an idea of what to expect from the players on your roster, and then we hold ourselves accountable. The following week, we'll always go over our accuracy ratings for the week prior to let you know, how did we do? We want to be held accountable. We obviously want to give the best advice we possibly can, but no one is going to get 100%, but we do own up to the things that we miss on. Another reason why people love these episodes so much. Maybe you have 2 guys that are listed as a start, but you don't know which one to choose from. That's cool. Later in the week, rankings videos will come out for each and every position to help you make those tough decisions. Now, one thing we're really known for here in the offseason is a ton of giveaways. We do giveaways all the time. Now they're going into the regular season. The first one's a biggin'. And it's going to be a bundle giveaway. I have a autographed Justin Jefferson jersey, a Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0, and a Trevor Lawrence rookie card that I'm going to bundle together. How do you enter this giveaway? It's super simple. Sign up for a new account on PrizePicks. Download the app, visit the website, set up a new account, and use the referral code of Headliners in that box. Once you do that, you make a minimum of a $20 deposit. PrizePicks is going to match your deposit up to $100. We're going to be giving away PrizePicks information all season long, including starting in this video with a few prop bets that we really like. You want to win some extra money? This is how you do it. Plus, anybody who signs up for PrizePicks and uses that referral code Headliners, makes their deposit here in the month of September, is eligible to win this giveaway. Super pumped to give that away to somebody, but now is the time we've all been waiting for, and we're kicking it off. Thursday night football here between the Dallas Cowboys, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it's week 1. We're not going to get super cute here and not start our studs. It's obvious that we're going to start Zeke, right? We know that you drafted him there in the first round. He's going to be in your lineup, but I'm getting a little bit worried about this matchup going up against Tampa Bay. Plus, we now know starting guard Zach Martin will not be in the mix, and Lyle Collins on the offensive line as well missed a day of practice last week. So that's something we're paying really close attention to. We don't want him to lose 2 members of his offensive line right off the bat, especially going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who last season were the #1 run defense in all things football. What changed for them in the offseason? Nothing. It's basically the same team. It's going to be a very difficult matchup. The biggest concern I have is that the Dallas defense can't stop the offense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if the Buccaneers get out to a lead, Dallas is going to have to be playing catch-up, which is cool for CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. But Zeke may not get that huge volume that we like to see on a weekly basis. Obviously, you're going to start him. Tony Pollard is not a guy that we're going to start in week 1 of fantasy football. Zeke's starting, but it may not be one of the best matchups for him. For Tampa Bay, man, is this such a crapshoot, right? So many options in this backfield with Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, now Gio Bernard. What are we going to do, not just this week, but on a weekly basis? Now, I have to believe that the higher ceiling is Ronald Jones, but you look at the end of 2020, they rode Leonard Fournette. Playoff Lenny, Super Bowl Lenny carried them throughout the playoffs in their time of need. Does that really start back up here this year? How involved is Gio Bernard in the passing game? Because that could hurt Leonard Fournette, who gets the goal line carries. Both Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette are capable, and it's a great matchup. Last year, Dallas was one of the worst run Ds in all of football. They gave up over 158 yards a game. Now, I honestly believe that one of these running backs is going to have a pretty good game. Which one is it going to be? Like I said, it's going to be a crapshoot. I'm going to list them both as starts because I do believe they both cross a 10-point threshold to become a solid start. Which one of these guys is going to have the big game, I just don't know. But I do think that Tampa Bay comes out. They got their ring ceremony. They got that swagger. They got that offense. They got Tom Brady. They're going to move the ball and talk about asserting some dominance. They can do it primetime Thursday Night Football to kick off the regular season here of the NFL. If you have better options, personally, I would prefer to sit them both. Like I said, I got them both listed as starts because I think they do okay, but I'd like to see how this backfield kind of shakes out over the coming weeks before really starting to nail down who is the guy on a weekly basis. Now, some people are going to come out and say, hey, Ronald Jones is on the top of the depth chart. He's the starter. Cool, I don't care about who the starter is. I care about who's playing more snaps. Just because somebody starts a game doesn't mean they get more touches than the guy behind him. It's just who starts the game. Not always does it just equate to who starts gets the most touches. Some teams really utilize that running back by committee. Tampa Bay is going to be one of them. And until we get a clearer picture, I'd prefer to wait. But like I said, I think Tampa Bay just goes out there and flings it all over the place, wherever they want to go, and that defense is just super, super solid. A little bit worried for Zeke, but you know what? It is what it is here in week one. Do not freak out after this week. I know people are going to come on here and be like, can't believe Zeke, I can't believe I drafted him. He's a bust. Calm down. We did a video on that not that long ago. Don't freak out after one matchup in a tough matchup to kick off the regular season there on Thursday Night Football. Next up, what about we move on to Sunday? Talk about Philadelphia and Atlanta. And the question I have here is for Philadelphia, how many running backs do they really use in that backfield? How much Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell do we actually see? Will they please make a commitment to Miles Sanders? There's just a lot of question marks overall in this offense. Now, obviously, I'm going to start Miles Sanders this week. Hopefully, he's probably your running back too if you got some solid wide receivers. Maybe he's your flex if you went heavy running back early, and I don't hate that in a matchup going up against Atlanta. Now, for Atlanta, everybody all of a sudden is worried that Wayne Gallman is the guy there. Listen, Wayne Gallman hasn't even been in town long enough to check out the varsity and get himself a hot dog or a burger or some onion rings right down the street. He's not going to be the lead guy in this backfield yet. Could that happen down the stretch of the season? Possibly. It depends how Mike Davis performs. And as of right now, Mike Davis is still that guy in this offense. I'll start Mike Davis here this week just due to volume alone. How involved is he in the passing game? If he can be as involved as he was in Carolina, we're good to go for a solid flex on a weekly basis. If they abandon the passing game to their running backs and just continue to push the ball down the field to Ridley and Pitts and Gage, even Hayden Hurst, then we're going to start getting a little bit more worried about Mike Davis. But in the first matchup, to kind of get their nerves out of the way and get the season off and rolling, I expect them to use Mike Davis pretty heavily here this week, and he's going to be a start for me this week. Plus, he's got the goal line upside. Nobody else is going to take it from him here. His thighs are like ginormous. Dude can get in the end zone. Not a scary start for me here in week one. Now we move on to Pittsburgh and Buffalo in the regular season debut of Najee Harris in Pittsburgh, but it's not going to be the easiest matchup for him here this week, especially if the Buffalo run D gets the return of Star Lotulelei. Did I nail it? I got it? Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Regular season form already. But anyway, it's going to be a tough matchup for Najee, but he can overcompensate with that with the sheer volume that he could get. Right now, we know they have a lot of weapons on the outside with Juju, Deontay, and Claypool, but that's only going to clear the box up for Najee Harris. Plus, we know he can get involved in the passing game and really be a solid 3-down running back here for the Pittsburgh Steelers, something we've seen for decades in Pittsburgh. Najee fits that role, and it will not surprise me to see him in a similar role this week. He may get the volume, he may not be efficient, but at the end of the day, he should have a solid day for your fantasy football team. As for Buffalo, you got Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. No. We're not starting them week 1 in fantasy football. If you have to, you may have already lost your season. Some underlining light, I guess you could say. TJ Watt may miss the game, so if that's the case, it's a little bit slightly easier matchup, I guess you could say. But Devin Singletary, Zach Moss are going to be splitting work. Not really a team known for relying, heavily on the running backs. Josh Allen is basically the running back 1 there. Plus, the guy can throw the ball down the field with the best of them, and he's got plenty of weapons to throw to. Not touching Singletary or Moss here this week. On to the Vikings and Bengals now, and no, you never, ever sit Dalvin Cook. But this week, you get a pretty good matchup for him going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, one of the worst run Ds in 2020. And honestly, Dalvin Cook is out there getting Derrick Henry type volume at times. There were games last year where he was getting 30 plus carries on the ground. Plus, he's involved in the passing game. A matchup going up against Cincinnati is a great way for him to start the season. And obviously, no brainer, he's in your lineup. What about Joe Mixon? Now, a lot of people just want to hate on Joe Mixon. You either hate him or you love him. But did you know, since coming into the league in 2017 with Dalvin Cook, he's actually played in more games than Dalvin Cook. Yet, everybody says Joe Mixon is more injury prone than Dalvin Cook. It's a huge mess, but what this means here this year, he's healthy, he's back. He's got weapons on the outside to take defenders outside the box with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, capable of throwing the ball down the field. Joe Mixon should have the best running lanes he's had in years, which should help overcompensate a little bit for an average-ish offensive line. Plus, no more Gio Bernard to take away passing work. Joe Mixon could be a bell cow 3-down running back that I have no issue starting here this week. Samaje Perine, he's just a name to remember. If anything were to happen to Joe Mixon, that's the guy behind him, but not start-worthy here in fantasy football. Now we move on to the matchup of the San Francisco 49ers and Detroit Lions. Now, I would like to think that we see a pretty heavy dose of Raheem, not quite a Mostert here in San Francisco, and he's somebody who I have no issues throwing into my lineup. It's Trey Sermon's first ever NFL game. I don't expect him to go out there and get a ton of volume. What could happen, though, on the goal line, we could see Trey Sermon come into that ball game and vulture some touchdowns. That's not what we want to see as Raheem Mostert owners, but I can't start Trey Sermon until we really see how they split these two guys out of the backfield. Now, Detroit, not a great run defense. They shouldn't have too much of an issue. I wouldn't be surprised if San Francisco gets a lead in this ball game, relies a little bit more heavily on the run down the stretch, and we get some of those garbage points from Raheem Mostert, so I have no issue starting him. For Detroit, DeAndre Swift is in real trouble and may not even play here in week 1. We're going to have an update on him later in the week in an injury recap video with the doc, so make sure you stay tuned to that. Now, if he does not play, we're looking at Jamal Williams, which is great because he could get a lot more volume with no DeAndre Swift there, but it's a tough matchup going up against San Francisco. And I got to think, in week 1 of fantasy football, you have a better option than Jamal Williams in week 1. I do think he sees solid volume. It would not surprise me if he has a solid day. But a running game in Detroit, in a game in which I expect them to be trailing, I'm not overly excited to start Jamal Williams, and not a guy that I really want to either. If DeAndre Swift does play, or he at least suits up, I'm worried. I mean, the last thing I want to do is take up a starting roster spot by a guy who we already know is banged up. What happens if he goes out there and after one series realizes, hey man, I can't go, and he sits? I don't want a 0 in my lineup, so I got to make sure I have that contingency, that backup plan here just in case he does not play. As of right now, though, I'm worried about both these guys. Neither one of them are going to be in the start column for me here in week 1. Arizona and Tennessee, and James Conner is healthy, which means we start him because I think he still absorbs that Kenyon Drake role in Arizona. Now, a lot of people just look at Chase Edmonds as being the guy. He's not going to be just the guy. He's going to be involved, sure, but the reason that Chase Edmonds excelled in 2020 was because the role that he was put in. If you give him that 3-down role, he's not likely to succeed like we saw last year. He thrives in that passing down work, and I don't expect James Conner to be heavily involved in the passing game, but goal line, between the tackles, early down work, yeah, that's going to be a lot of James Conner, especially why he's healthy. Not a bad matchup here going up against the Tennessee Titans. I don't think they want Kyler Murray to be running as much here in Arizona. They want to try to limit the opportunities for him getting injured while out there scrambling around. Not to say he's not going to do it, because he will. That's a part of his game. But more, planned running games, more short screen games, that's where they're going to really live to take some of that pressure off of Kyler Murray and open up the deep passing game down the field. I have no issue starting either one of these guys this week. I think they both have a solid floor and a decent ceiling going up against Tennessee. For Tennessee, like I said in the opening, it's obvious we're going to start Derrick Henry, but don't forget, this is a pretty good defensive front for the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, their secondary not the greatest. Julio Jones and A.J. Brown could just feast this week. But they do have J.J. Watt. They have Chandler Jones, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins. They have some athletic linebackers and a great pass rush that could bottle up Henry at times, but we've seen it week in and week out. Henry may start off slow in the game, but second half comes around and he had just worn people out, and that's where he really goes to work. So obviously, no doubts, absolutely 100%, every single week you're starting Derrick Henry. Time to move over to the Seattle Seahawks, Indianapolis Colts, and the same thing goes for Chris Carson that I said for James Conner. When he's healthy, I got no issue starting him whatsoever, but this is not the best of matchups for him going up against Indianapolis, who has another great front seven. We know about, rookie stud Kwity Paye. He's been tearing things up here in the preseason. DeForest Buckner there on the defensive line. It's going to be tough going for Chris Carson. Indianapolis is really a better defense than a lot of people want to give credit to. I really want to see Chris Carson get about 5 targets in the passing game. If he can get about 5 targets, reel in 3 or 4 catches for 30, 40, 50 yards or so, that's definitely going to bump the floor up on a weekly basis. That's what's going to have to happen here this week in order for him to have an above average type game that we want to see from Chris Carson, but he's still going to be in the start column, the only running back which I'm willing to even think about starting in Seattle, especially on week 1. For Indianapolis, 100% you're starting, Jonathan Taylor. He's already come out, has head coach Frank Wright said, hey, he's going to have more of a bell cow role, which I love to hear. It sounds like guard Quentin Nelson's going to be back. Fingers crossed on that. Another one of those guys we're really paying attention to in the injury update. But until we really see how the split in this backfield goes, I have to believe the majority, at least 60 to 70% of the touches, are going the way of Jonathan Taylor, especially here in week 1. As the season progresses, we may see a little bit more Nyheim Hines, and that all depends on the health of Carson Wentz as well, and whether we're checking down more, pushing the ball down the field. Losing T.Y. Hilton loses one of those deeper threats, so it may be a slight tweak to the offense, but for right now, Jonathan Taylor is the only guy I'm starting in Indianapolis, and I'm not thinking about it on a weekly basis. Chargers and football team here up next, and you can't ever sit Austin Ekeler. This is a tough matchup for him. We've been talking about all these tough defensive fronts here over the past few matchups. Washington may be the best in all of the NFL, but here's why I'm not as worried about Austin Ekeler as maybe I would be if this was a running back that's more between the tackles. Austin Ekeler makes the majority of his money. He scores his fantasy points in the passing game, getting him the ball out in space. A swing pass, a screen pass, a short curl, whatever it may be, getting the ball to Austin Ekeler and letting him make defenders miss. That's what he's done his entire career. He's really not a guy that's meant to line up in the I formation and run between the tackles. It's not really his game, and that's not how they're going to use him every single down. So I'm not as worried that he could be limited by this front seven. They just got to find a way to get him the ball in more space. Austin Ekeler is the guy I'm starting in Los Angeles. For the football team, y'all know I love me some Antonio Gibson, but do not sleep on the defense here of the Los Angeles Chargers. It is not an easy matchup. I'm not worried about J.D. McKissic. Sure, he'll be involved at times, but this is the backfield of Antonio Gibson. And look at what we saw last year from him. Any growth from him is going to be astronomical numbers, and a guy that you can't sit. More than likely, you drafted him beginning of the second round or so. He's got to be somebody that's a mainstay in your lineup. Not the greatest of matchups, may limit the ceiling slightly, but still a guy that you can't sit. Jets and Panthers now, and who's excited for the return of Christian McCaffrey? I mean, a lot of people looking forward to having Christian McCaffrey, but they're worried about 2020 and say, the guy's just so injury prone. He's not. He wasn't injured in college. He wasn't really injured before last season. He had a couple bad breaks and missed a lot of time. The guy is back. He's healthy, and there's no reason why he won't be what he used to be in this offense, especially in a matchup going up against the New York Jets. Love Christian McCaffrey here once again. Not worried about the signing of Royce Freeman, but neither him or Chuba Hubbard are going to be starts unless something were to happen to Christian McCaffrey. On the Jets side of things, it's a mess. No idea how they're really going to handle the split in this backfield. I mean, we have 4 guys that on any given week could get some touches between Tevin Coleman and Michael Carter and Ty Johnson and LaMichael Pirine. I mean, none of them to start the season are like, sounds like a good idea, even though it's a great matchup going up against Carolina, who has historically been one of the worst run defenses in the league ever since Luke Kuechly left the football field. So it's a great matchup, but we don't know who it's going to be. I don't expect you have to make a decision on starting one of these guys. If you did, I guess I'd gamble on Tevin Coleman. But as far as I'm concerned, for the near future, they're all going to be sits here in New York. Jags in Houston, and J-Rob is back. Our boy James Robinson back in that starting role for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we're loving it. We're also loving his prop bet over on Prize Picks right now. His over-under is set at 72.5 rushing yards on the day. I'm smashing the over on a James Robinson day going up against the Houston Texans. We know there's no Travis Etienne. We have Carlos Hyde, who will see some touches, but James Robinson going up against this defense who last year allowed over 160 yards a game on the ground. Did they get any better in Houston? I don't think Houston got any better anywhere. I'm smashing the over there on Prize Picks, and if you signed up, that's maybe a bet that you may want to take as well. I'm for sure starting James Robinson on the Houston side of things. It's a great matchup. I would love to start somebody against the Jacksonville defense. I don't want to start anybody in Houston. Why? Who is it? Is it Mark Ingram? Is it Phillip Lindsay? Is it David Johnson? I mean, who is it going to be in the backfield? How are they going to utilize this split? They've already come out and said, hey, yeah, we're using the running back by committee. We're going to use the hot hand. That absolutely kills fantasy value for everybody because you may select the wrong guy. You may put a guy in your lineup in this backfield that gets 2 touches for 5 yards and kills your fantasy team. I just can't do it until there's more clarity in this backfield. Sorry, I'm passing on everybody here in Houston. Cleveland and Kansas City now, and you know what that means. It's Chubb time. You're never sitting Nick Chubb, ever. And in the matchup here this week with Kansas City and their great offense going up against Cleveland and their really good defense. A lot of people still don't want to give enough props to Cleveland and their defense, but we know what Cleveland wants to do. They need to control the clock. They need to control time of possession. They need to keep the ball away from Patrick Mahomes in order to have a chance at winning this ball game. They need to win it on the ground and on defense. Keep it away from Patty all you can. How do you do that? You run, and then you run some more with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb last year averaged over 10 yards a carry in the fourth quarter. The guy is somebody who gets better as the game goes on, just like Derrick Henry is. The matchup doesn't scare me too much. Obviously, you're starting Nick Chubb. If you got Kareem Hunt maybe as your flex option, he's fired up in the start column as well. For Kansas City, it's not an ideal matchup, but you got to start Clyde Edwards-Helaire here this week. I really expect him to take a step forward in this offense. We told people to shy away last year. Hey, not the best situation last year in a COVID year, no offseason. Andy Reid's likely to kind of use a more running back by committee approach. A lot of people were excited after week 1 and then got severely disappointed the rest of the year. This year could be the year that they kind of unhook the chains and let the dude go to work. Plus, we know he's great in the passing game. Hopefully, they utilize the passing game with him a little bit more this week because he could struggle running between the tackles on a defensive front of Cleveland with Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett. Not the best of situations to really run against, if you know what I mean. So CEH still going to be a start. Really want him to be involved in the passing game this week, though. That's what's going to be the key to him having a lot better game. On to Miami and New England, and finally, we have a little bit of clarity in the backfield for the New England Patriots, right? I mean, Cam Newton not under center, which means he's not going to take away goal line carries or call his own number between the tackles. Sony Michel, he's gone now. He's with the Rams. So it looks like the keys to the car have been handed over to start the season to Damian Harris, which I absolutely love because the guy has produced when given an opportunity. The problem is he never got consistent touches. I think he does now. Tough matchup for him going up against Miami. Miami's defense, very, very, very underrated, and this could be a long day for Damian Harris. He needs to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 to 18 touches, right around 70 yards, but I do think he has that touchdown upside and that goal line potential here this week to get him a solid fantasy day. That's why I got him as a start. James White, I don't know if James White's going to be a thing without Tom Brady in New England. Tom Brady really utilized James White, and since Tom Brady has been gone, James White has been non-existent and not somebody who I'm going to start here just yet. For Miami, It's Myles Gaskin. He looked good in the preseason. When healthy last year, they were committed to him and he produced in this offense. He's going to get that opportunity to start this season. Not the greatest of matchups for him, but I do expect Miami to get a lead in this ballgame. And if they can get that lead, they can rely a little bit more on Myles Gaskin in the second half, giving you that above average fantasy day. I got him as a start here this week. I'm not overly concerned in week 1 about Salvon Ahmed or Malcolm Brown. It's all about Myles Gaskin here to start the season. On to Green Bay and New Orleans, and this is my Manscaped matchup of the week. Don't forget about our sponsors over at Manscaped. Head over there after this video is over. Use the promo code Headliners at checkout and get yourself 20% off and free shipping. There are a ton of products. It's not just ball trimmers. They got nose hair trimmers, all kinds of things for you to go make sure you're taken care of all year long. Head over there after this show, and this is going to be one of those matchups that I really look forward to watching this week. I mean, there's no question about it. This is two of the best running backs in football, Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones. They're both going to be weekly must-starts. But Aaron Jones is another one of those guys who I'm smashing the over on with Prize Picks. Right now, his over-under is set at 75.5 rushing yards. I'm smashing the over. I think that they go out there and really begin their discount double suck it tour for Green Bay. Aaron Jones being a big beneficiary of that. He's got that big playability. He could almost get those yards in one play. Smashing the over for Aaron Jones there on Prize Picks. But Kamara, he also gets the bump with Jameis Winston under center, right? A little bit more action in the passing game. We don't have to worry about Taysom Hill calling his own number at times. We've seen big games out of both of these guys, and this is a great matchup for them, for both of them to come out and really try to start off hot. We know Green Bay wants to. We know New Orleans is going to be playing for their city who was just ravaged by a hurricane. We know the game's not being played in New Orleans. There's a lot here that shows fireworks to me, and that's why I've named it the Manscaped matchup of the week here this week. Looking forward to watching both of these guys play. They're both obvious starts. For A.J. Dillon, somebody who I want to see his role. Does he actually adopt that Jamal Williams role? I want to see that before I actually trust throwing him in my lineup. Denver and New York and the return of Saquon Barkley, but is it the return to a full workload? That's the biggest question, right? Because it sounds like as of right now, at the time of this recording, he's going to play in week 1. How limited is he? Remember, we're used to seeing Saquon Barkley going out on a weekly basis and getting 20 to 25 touches. Are we going to be disappointed if he goes out and only gets 12 to 15 this week? It doesn't matter if he suits up. You got to start him. You can't afford to sit your stud in week 1 in a matchup going up against Denver, which is not the easiest. But you drafted Saquon Barkley in the first round for a reason. You got to be able to use them. Hopefully these weapons, these newly acquired weapons on the outside, pull defenders outside of the box. Could be the lightest fronts he's run against in years in New York. If Daniel Jones can show any improvement in the passing game, Saquon Barkley still has room for a solid day here this week. Obviously, a start for Denver. I mean, I was super on the bandwagon of Melvin Gordon to start the offseason when they let Phillip Lindsay leave. Then they drafted Javonte Williams. Now Melvin Gordon dealing with a groin injury. Sounds like he's going to be good to go. Another one we really need to pay close attention to. If for some reason Melvin Gordon does not play, Javonte Williams becomes a must-start player for me. As of right now, though, with it looking like Melvin Gordon is going to start, I do believe that Denver relies a little bit more on him for the first few weeks of the season. Not the greatest of matchups going up against New York, but he should see the volume and the touchdown upside. I'm going to start Melvin Gordon as long as he plays. Obviously, if anything changes and he sits or he's limited, I'll sit Melvin Gordon and start Javonte Williams. Just one of those situations we need to pay attention to here as the week progresses. I wish it was clear, right? But I got to think that Melvin Gordon still gets the keys to the car here to start the season for the Denver Broncos. On to the Chicago Bears, Los Angeles Rams in a super sucky matchup for the start of the season for David Montgomery. But you probably can't afford to sit him here this week either. Hopefully the great price that you got him on draft day affords you to have him maybe even be your flex option this week, because the upside is going to be limited going up against that tough defense of the Los Angeles Rams. Now, no Tariq Cohen. That helps. How much do we see of Damian Williams? Probably not a whole lot, maybe sprinkled in here time and again. The volume should still be there for David Montgomery in a super tough matchup. This dude needs to find the end zone this week. I don't think he surpasses 100 yards rushing by any means going up against the Rams. He's going to be in that ballpark, hopefully of 60 to 70, and can find that end zone. That's what we're hoping for, is banking on that touchdown. That's why I got him as a start. For the Rams, How much do we think Sony Michel plays in week 1? I honestly don't think we see a ton of Sony Michel. He's just too new to this offense, and they rested Darrell Henderson in the preseason for a reason. They are going to rely on this guy. We broke Darrell Henderson down in depth all offseason, even before the Cam Akers injury. We like what this guy has, and he's done well when given an opportunity. As long as he can stay healthy, which he is right now, he should put up some solid numbers. I'm going to start Darrell Henderson. I'm not going to touch Sony Michel here as of yet. And then we finish it off, Monday Night Football, Baltimore Ravens, Las Vegas Raiders, and everybody aboard the Gus bus, right? A great matchup for him to start the season going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Should see heavy volume. He's seen success in this offense for years. He's averaged over 5 yards a carry. No J.K. Dobbins. This guy could have a great year and a great week this week going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. 100%. I have no issues starting Gus Edwards this year. For Las Vegas, man, Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. Last year, we were so high on Josh Jacobs, and we loved the potential, but we loved it based off of the volume we saw him getting. How much of that volume does he lose to Kenyon Drake? We know he didn't get a ton of passing work, but does he lose all of it to Kenyon Drake? Does he lose even 25% of what he saw on the ground? If so, he becomes more down to earth and a running back too. He's going to be a start, but my expectations are nowhere near the level that they were at last year at this time, and especially in a difficult matchup going up against the Baltimore Ravens. I got Josh Jacobs as a start. Kenyon Drake, I want to see his role. Plus, there's no way you're reliant on starting Kenyon Drake here in week 1, but he is a name that I'm going to be watching because if they utilize him more in the passing game, do we see him creeping out to the slot at times? Do we see him involved in that short passing game? If that's the case, Kenyon Drake is a name that we will watch later on here in the season. All right, so there it is, our first start-sit video of 2021 fantasy football. We do these for running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends on a weekly basis. Plus, we got rankings, injury updates, weather updates, tailgate recipes of the week, all kinds of things coming here this year in fantasy football. So hit that subscribe button and do me a favor, hit the like button as well. It really helps us out here on YouTube. It brings more traffic to the site than you know, and it's really an easy way to help support us on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for the support throughout the offseason. Totally looking forward to killing it here in 2021 during the regular season for fantasy football. So hopefully you have a great rest of your day, a great week. Make sure you sign up for Prize Picks so you can enter for that giveaway. That's a huge giveaway pack you don't want to miss out on. But have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.